Welcome to Skaneateles. This is the most beautiful little village in the Finger Lakes. Now the Finger Lakes, as you know, are 11 parallel lakes that were formed with the glaciers thousands and thousands of years ago. And they are all long, narrow lakes that flow northward. And eventually their waters will end up in Lake Ontario. But we love it here because of our beautiful lake, but also because of our charming little village. We have people from all over the world who live here, who shop here, people who vacation here, and it is such a wonderful, restful, but beautiful and really exciting place to live. I am Colleen Plimpton. I am a 10-year resident of Skaneateles, and I'm a volunteer here at the Skaneateles Historical Association.
What's your relationship with the lake, the water here?
The lake is the beating heart of Skaneateles. It is the reason why Skaneateles is as special as it is. Geographically, where we are situated, the lake has very steep sides. The water is cleansed before it ever comes into the lake because we have a swamp, Bear Creek Swamp, at the southern end of our lake. When the water comes out of the lake, it can be harnessed. And so we had water power here in the 1800s. All kinds of businesses thrived. The men came back from the Civil War and they had seen the world. They were no longer farm boys, and they formed businesses and they had water power, and the town and the village, they're both named Skaneateles, thrived. We have been blessed. We've been blessed by Mother Nature. We've been blessed by the people who come here, and we've been blessed by the people and the organizations that help protect this lake, this village, and this way of life.
Can you talk about the formation of the village?
The native peoples lived here for thousands of years, and when they were moved off their historic lands with the Sullivan Campaign and the westward migration of people from New England, the lands were opened, and soldiers after the Revolution came here, and as the people, the soldiers primarily in the beginning in the late 1780s, 1790s, the soldiers of the Revolution came here and they recognized what a beautiful place it was. So people came, the farmers with their families, they came westward and they saw beautiful Skaneateles, what's not to like, and they decided this is a good place to start a farm, raise a family, grow a business, and that was the beginning.
Can you give me a picture of what the town looked like in the 1820s, leading into Lafayette's arrival, basically?
When the first white people came here, they created a village with their rudimentary homes and the livestock, of course, and the way of life. There were always small businesses here, but it was very quiet. However, in 1825, the Erie Canal was finished, and that changed everything, even for Skaneateles. So in 1824-25, during Lafayette's final farewell tour, there were big changes happening here in Skaneateles because the Erie Canal was just a few miles north of us. Because now the farmers could take their crops, grow a few extra bushels of wheat or corn, and they could get on their wagons and take it up to Jordan perhaps, or Camillus, which are towns that aren't too far away from here, get their products off to market. And that really was the beginning of the middle class, and that helped support the small businesses that would have been there here even at that time.
Can you tell me a little more about the impact of Lafayette's visit to Skaneateles?
General Lafayette was here in the middle of the night, 1825. We do believe that he came here on a fancy coach, probably loaned by one of our illustrious citizens, Judge Kellogg, and he stopped at the Hall's Hotel, which would have been right downtown, kind of our four corners, and there he was toasted and met by other illustrious citizens. He wasn't here long, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning, but there were people out because people knew how important this was. Little Skaneateles was being visited by an icon. And then he got in his fancy coach and he went on. He went further east.
What do you think it meant for people back then to welcome this man and what he represented?
This man was a hero of the Revolution, and he was one of the few remaining heroes of the Revolution, and I believe the last general, and it meant a great deal to the people of Skaneateles. He was met with cheering crowds because he represented the ideals of America. He embodied the men who had fought and died for the revolution. And people knew that those people who had fought were passing from this earth, and they wanted to honor him. It helps us to recall what the meaning of forming this country was all about, the freedom. And well, you French have an expression, fraternité, égalité, liberté. Yes, that's what it was about. And here he was, Lafayette, who was the person, the Frenchman, the fighter, the general who helped us achieve what we so badly wanted to achieve in expressing our independence from Great Britain. When he came through here, he was sort of like the last of the living legends. He wasn't here long, but we know he was here.
One of the major themes underpinning Lafayette's tour is the fact that the economic prosperity that he sees throughout the nation is the result of the republican institutions of the nation, that they are revolutionary in their own right. And of course, the Erie Canal here is the perfect evidence of that economic growth. What do you make of that, and what are the effects of the canal in this area of the country?
The Erie Canal changed everything. It was difficult to get through, but finally the canal began to be dug, and it was dug by hand. My goodness, it was a difficult enterprise. In 1817 and was finished in 1825. It changed all of upstate New York. And the world rushed in. The world came with their businesses and their people and their ideas and their religions and all manner of things, and it just breathed life into upstate New York, which really at that time would have been very agrarian and a very slow pace of life. But these villages and cities and towns along the Erie Canal boomed.
As a resident of Skaneateles, can you give me your heartfelt, your personal feelings about why you have an interest in Lafayette? What maybe captivates you or what fascinates you, not only about his life, but his visit here?
My thoughts on Lafayette are first that he was a brave young man to come here, risking all, to help this fledgling, we weren't even a country yet, to become what it became. He believed in the ideals that we had set forth. He treated the native peoples like people. And in the face of most of the people who were in power in the United States at that time. We remember him as the war hero, but I think we also need to remember him as the person who treated the native peoples decently. It was shortly after he came through upstate New York that New York State abolished slavery. It was in the later 1820s. He had an effect on that. I do think that that was part of, people recognized what he stood for and what he had done all those years before in the Revolution, and they were like, you know, we need to rethink some things. He helped us to think.
How did people here in Skaneateles manifest their gratitude to Lafayette in 1825?
I think people manifested their gratitude to Lafayette in their sheer numbers and their sheer volume. Ordinarily, you wouldn't have had children and women out in the dead of night, but they wanted to honor this man. And how could they do it? They could do it with their cheers. They could do it with their torches. They could do it by their presence to make sure that the village people of Skaneateles wanted to let Lafayette know how important he had been to them. I think that it all ties in. The beauty of the lake, the special place that Skaneateles is and was, and Lafayette's visit, it kind of all comes together.
I think the universalism of the lake, the beauty that appeals to everyone that looks at it,
Yes, yes.
I think ties in perfectly with the political imagery that Lafayette embodies,
Yes.
a very patriotic one. With the 200th anniversary of Lafayette's tour, how do you reminisce about his visit and what he represented?
I think it behooves us all to understand what a hero Lafayette was and what he represented to America. And now that we are in the 200th anniversary, the bicentennial of his epic visit to our nation, I would like to see more about Lafayette being taught in the schools. The United States has always been a place where people come from all over the world, and they're still coming. And I think it's important to understand how important Lafayette's role was. He didn't have to come here. He didn't. But he did. He helped us achieve what we achieved. And then, when he came on his farewell tour, it reminded everybody of what he meant and what he valued. And it's time for us to revalue that. It's time for school children to learn what Lafayette did and about his tour and what people felt about him. I don't think we hear the word Marquis de Lafayette as often as we should in our schools. Little kids need to hear this, need to understand what a part of the world the United States is and always was. That's important. And that reinvigorates those values that Lafayette had, that he believed in so strongly that he came and risked his life to fight for our independence. It's time that we all thought about that.
Lafayette's secretary commented on the simplicity of manners of Americans and on the equality of conditions that he saw firsthand throughout the US, in particular across the Finger Lakes area. A more democratic form of government, superior republican manners, economic prosperity. Lafayette's limited time in Skaneateles invoked all the principal themes that stimulated the Frenchman's animus for American republicanism his entire life. Skaneateles in 1825 encapsulated the Republican DNA of the young American nation that first drew Lafayette to these shores during the Revolutionary War. The town is well aware of this legacy and has taken steps to preserve it. Why would it not? After all, honoring Lafayette is a self-congratulatory effort for Skaneateles. Lafayette's visit here provided an example of how symbolic imagery had the power to transform the beauty of nature into a patriotic monument of American greatness. The lake is indeed beautiful, but it is even more so because Lafayette once looked at it.